If you're a regular watcher of the show, you'll know that the first episode of every year sees us sitting around a table talking about those cars that we're really looking forward to driving over the next 12 months. Because as if having a job that affords you a whole range of cars to drive on a regular basis isn't good enough, there are those days where you get to drive something extra special. And today, at Kyle Army, is one of those days. This is the much talked about spiritual successor to the legendary Mercedes-Benz 300 SL Gullwing, the SLS AMG. It's a car that, since its European launch in November last year, has won 7 major awards, everything from Best Performance Engine to Europe's Most Attractive Car. It is the most powerful Formula One pace car in history, it is a modern classic, and it is the first car that AMG have ever made. If you think about BMW's M division or Audi's S cars or even AMG themselves, what usually happens is the manufacturers give them a car to turn into something special, and when they're done, they put a badge on it and give it back to the manufacturers. But this time round, AMG were tasked with designing a car from the ground up, and when they were finished, they gave it to Mercedes-Benz so they could stick a 3-pointed star on it. The starting point for the job was to create something that looks the part, then endow it with massive power and minimal weight. Of course, it helped that AMG could look back at the original Gullwing for their inspiration. There are a few reasons a 300 SL Gullwing will cost you around 5 million rand these days. And one of those reasons is it is a design icon, one of the most beautiful cars ever made. Now, the SLS is a thoroughly modern car with all that means, its looks, its aerodynamics and everything else, but it's done an amazing job of updating a classic look. Considering this is their first attempt at making a car, you have to admit that AMG have done pretty well. The SLS is simply one of the most jaw-droppingly awesome-looking cars to have come out over the last few years. It's right up there with the Audi R8 in terms of the way it just makes you stare. It's wide and low and hungry looking, and the rear has clean and simple lines that are just as gorgeous as the rest of the package. And to enhance the looks a little more, you can opt for the matte grey paint job on our track car for 50,000 rand. Not enough? How about the aluminium paint job that costs 125,000 rand? This car is dramatic even before you turn the key. Even the doors do things differently. The international ad campaign for the SLS goes something along the lines of, it has a cockpit and an engine and 2 wings, is it still a car? Now the interior has a heavy aviation influence. The dashboard is wing-shaped, these vents remind you of jet engines, and the gearshift looks like an aircraft throttle control. The materials cover everything from classic leather to ultra-modern carbon fiber and even magnesium. The carbon fiber center console is an extra cost option, and so are the racing seats. The regular seats are just fine, but the standard aluminium center console isn't nearly as nice as our test cars. There are a lot of incredibly boring figures about the interior of this car, how the doors need less width to open than regular doors, how wide they open, etc, etc. But all you need to know is that even if you're related to Derek Watts, you'll fit in here just fine. And then there's the bit that makes it all go. This is not an engine. It's a prize-winning piece of art made by a guy called Guido Nordheim. It's a 6.2-litre V8 with 420 kilowatts and 650 Newton meters. 0 to 100 time, 3.8 seconds. Top speed, a mammoth 317 kilometers an hour. Mercedes-Benz call it the M159. I call it magic. Let's clear something up. The badge says 6.3, but the actual capacity of this motor is 6,208 cc. To me, that makes it a 6.2. That 317 km/h top speed is electronically limited, by the way, something about the ability of the specially designed Continental tires. This motor is based loosely on the one that's in the SL63, and I've driven that car. But these are totally different beasts. The power and the sound is just unbelievable. It is immense fun. From the time you turn the key to every time you approach the red line, the shove and the noise of this engine just puts a smile on your face. I made the comment to someone earlier that when you look at the SLS, there's not a lot of Formula One type influences like you see in an Enzo or a McLaren SLR. But AMG don't really care about that. They've left all the racing influences for the mechanical bit. So it's got things like a carbon fiber drive shaft and double wishbone suspension all around. And it's tuned this thing to feel absolutely incredible. This car gives you the impression it will happily destroy a racetrack and then drive you home quite comfortably. The optional carbon ceramic brakes help with that, giving huge fade-free stopping power. The grip in the SLS is just phenomenal. I mean, you can be mid-corner and think you're on the limit, and you just push it a little harder and it just keeps gripping and keeps delivering. And the turn-in is unbelievably sharp. It really makes your fingers feel like they've turned into these Alcantara-covered bits that really are connected to the steering. I keep on saying it, but it's just unbelievable. The SLS has that rare ability to connect you to the driving experience as a whole. You hear the motor, you see how quickly your surroundings mash past you, you feel exactly what the chassis and the steering are doing. After even a short time behind the wheel, you feel like you are part of the car. One of the best things about the SLS, yes, it's a German car, but it's not all about being clinical and about the figures and about clever engineering. I mean, the exhaust pipe pops and crackles, the auto gearbox double D clutches for you, and even with all the electronics switched in, you can still feel the back end wanting to step out and get a bit happy. And the whole thing just makes you feel like you're part of something really special. All of which comes at a price, naturally. Before I say how much, I will tell you that this year's allocation is already sold and the order books are full until May next year. Not a bad market response for a car that costs 2.45 million rand, and that's without any options. When it comes down to it, the best thing about the SLS isn't the looks or the power or the handling or the sound. It's the fact that when Mercedes-Benz decided they wanted a supercar, they gave it to the people who knew how to do it best. AMG, and that means this car has got performance in every square millimeter and every part of its makeup. It may not be a Ferrari or a Lamborghini or a Porsche, but no doubt, this is every bit the supercar. This is a car of superlatives, and it already has the trophies to prove it. Awesome looks matched to the thunderous output of hell itself, all wrapped up in a body weighing about the same as your little sister. Of course, it's reserved for the very select few, and even those who have 2.5 million rand to spare will have to wait till 2011 if they haven't ordered theirs yet.